first ever video. The topic I'm choosing is exercise order. Why am I choosing this? So, here at our gym, here online, kind of what I see on the internet is the young high school kids, typically athletes, typically football players. They come in and they kind of do whatever they want. So they know they want to get a little bit faster. They want to jump higher. They want to get stronger. They want to get a little bit more aesthetic, a little bit more hypertrophy, gain more muscle, all that kind of stuff. But they have zero clue on what to do, how to do it, what order. So what you have is kids come in, okay, let's see, what do I want to do? I want to squats, okay. All right, I just squatted. So I should probably do something for the hamstrings. Okay, I'll probably do an RDO, that's probably fine. Okay, maybe something for quads again. I'll do a leg press or a leg extension. Forgot box jumps, I need to jump higher, so I'll go do box jumps, and then I should probably do some calves. Oh yes, sprints, I need to get faster, so I'll do like 10 sprints. So if you're into strength conditioning, or if you're a coach, or you have any sort of knowledge about strength conditioning, working out, etc., you're kind of cringing at that whole idea of that workout. Honestly, it's kind of just a conjunction of random stuff organized. That's not how we want to do things here. So this is the proper order. So you'll see here everything nice and organized. So first up is sprinting, jumping and throwing, Olympic lifting and or weighted plyometrics, that's jumping. Fourth is going to be strength, i.e. big, heavy compound movements, primarily in the 1 to 5 rep range-ish. Then we move into our assistance work, our isolation work, and then lastly, our conditioning, or cardio, depending on what you want to call it. So, why is it in this particular order itself? So, if we look at this entire order, we have a continuum here. So it's based on the demand of your central nervous system. So starting out, we have a high central nervous system demand. Moving down, we have a low central nervous system demand. So we can see that sprinting is going to be the most demanding thing we do that particular day. This is going to be the highest velocity. This is going to be the most maximum intent, because if you're not running with maximum intent, that's not sprinting. That's just called jogging or running at a sub-maximal pace. That's not sprinting. Sprinting as hard as you possibly can. This is always at 100%. So you have sprinting, then you have jumping and throwing. Again, these are typically performed with higher velocity. So you're doing a box jump as high as you possibly can, or you're broad jumping as far as you can, or if you have a bands on, you can do overspeed. And either way, you're forming these things with maximal intent, which is being driven and controlled by your central nervous system. So these exercise uses very high degrees of your central nervous system. That's why they're first. You should always keep them first. Anytime you move them lower in the workout, then you're not getting maximum intent out of them. So why would you do them? Because these always need to be performed at maximum intent in order to get the result that you're looking for. Next up, Olympic lifting / weighted plyometrics. So depending on the day, you might not do either of these. So let's say you don't do either of those. Cool. All right. Straight to Olympic lifting. So this is also going to be higher velocity than our strength work. So this is slower than jumping and throwing and slower than sprinting. However, if you've ever seen someone do a clean and jerk or a snatch, you're moving pretty heavy weight, so it's not quite as fast as these things, but you're moving them lightning fast. You can't do a clean and jerk slowly. You can't do a snatch slowly. Otherwise, you'll simply fail. You have to move it fast. So again, higher central nervous system demand than the strength work. Strength is by nature going to be slow. It's going to be slow. If you're doing a heavy squat in the 1 to 5 rep range and you're trying pretty hard, it's at like, RP 8, 9, sometimes even 10, that's going to move pretty slowly. It's going to be a grinder. It's not always going to move fast. Now there's a difference when a velocity-based training comes into play. That's a whole different video. However, Olympic lifting becomes first, then our strength work. So that's there. This is slower than this. That's why it's after that. Next up, we move into our assistance work. So you still want to push your assistance work hard always. And an example of this would be, so say your strength work is a squat. Then you move into some hamstring stuff. So you're gonna go with a barbell RDO. The barbell RDO is not gonna be as taxing as the strength if it's your assistance movement. You could reverse that. You could go heavy RDLs at your strength in a 1 to 5 rep range, and then you could go squat in the 6 to 10 rep range. Still, it's one of the two is gonna be higher on the demand of the central nervous system on this continuum. Doesn't really matter how you cut it. The assistance work for the main strength movement is always going to be lower. It's going to come after, because by nature it is the assistance movement. They're assisting the strength movement. Next, you have isolation. So this could be in the form of a hamstring curl, a leg extension, a bicep curl, a chest fly, a lateral raise. You can go on and on and on. Isolation is probably one of the least demanding when it comes to central nervous system. Now that doesn't mean you don't push super hard, because you always do. Especially with assistance and isolation, you should be pushing, no less than or no more than 2 reps in reserve, depending on what your program calls. But generally speaking, one rep in reserve, or oftentimes if it's like a lateral raise, you can train to failure. That's not gonna kill you. But still, that's besides the point. Isolation is after assistance. Then we have our conditioning. In some cases, the isolation can actually come lower than the conditioning, depending on the intensity of the conditioning. For example, if you're doing some hard anaerobic conditioning, say 10 seconds on, 50 seconds off, 6 to 10 rounds on the assault bike, that's a pretty grueling session, but still, that's going to be lower than all of this stuff, because this is supplemental, and this is going to be always lower demanding than this, because by nature, you're going to be taking more rest during your sprint times, so you'll be at higher velocities. But with conditioning, you won't have as much rest, so it's not going to be as high when it comes to central nervous system demand as anything above this. Now again, this can kind of change, and all these can kind of change and intermingle and relate differently depending on your program, depending on your individual circumstance, situation. This is all very general topics here. Generally speaking, this is the order that we should always be in. Also, I almost forgot to mention, I actually flipped this order. So I've done both. I actually enjoy jumping and throwing before sprinting. Me personally, I find that it's a good warm-up. Sometimes I don't want to take 10, 15, sometimes 20 minutes to do a full dynamic warm-up. So I'll actually jump before I sprint. So whether I come in and do, 2 sets of box jumps, and I do 2 sets of broad jumps, I do that, and then I go into my sprints. For me, I just find that my sprints feel better after I jump, because I actually activated or primed my central nervous system to be at its peak before I sprinted. Because if you just sprint, sometimes, first 2, maybe sometimes even 3 reps, depending on the time you took off or what your situation is like, they might not feel very good. So when I do my jumps or my throws before my sprinting, my sprints actually feel better. Now this is just me on an individual thing. This is how I feel. You can do your own thing, but generally speaking, you want to do both of these always at the beginning of the workout. I found that the jumps and throws feel better before the sprints, and they also don't affect my sprint times. I've kind of played around with both, and I've came to that conclusion myself. That's just another tidbit that I like to do. Also, let's go through an example here. So, let's say this is a upper body day, because we kind of already used a lower body example for most of this because it's easier. Let's say it's an upper body day. Let's say that I want to get faster and I want to become more powerful. Who doesn't want to do those things? So you come in, let's say today I'm not sprinting actually, I'm doing some change of direction work. So I come in here and I'm actually going to do my jumps and my throws first. So I don't have jumps on the menu at all today. I just have throws. So let's say I have 2 sets of 5 on med ball slams, and then I have 2 sets of 5 on med ball rotational throws. So those are gonna go first. It's gonna prime my central nervous system. Next up, I'm gonna go into my sprints of the day. So that's gonna be 5, 10, 5 shuttles. Let's say I do 4 of those, 2 each side. Boom, this stuff is done. This is the highest degree of central nervous system demand. That's taken care of. Next up, let's say I want to do some Olympic lifting. So let's say I want to do a 3x3 on power jerks. Boom, do that. I get my upper body weighted plyos in. All right, next up, strength work. So I want to do a 5x2 on barbell bench press. Boom, my strength work is covered. Next up, assistance work, 3x10 on pull-ups. And then let's say I want to do some more upper body work for my push muscles. So let's go push-ups, let's go 3 sets to failure. Boom, there's that. Then I go into my conditioning. Let's say I want to do some zone 2 cardio today. So I'm going to go an hour on the elliptical at a zone 2 heart rate pace. That's exactly how you guys should be organizing your sessions. So again, it's all about nervous system demand here. That's the key. That's the key. The nervous system demand is what you want to focus on. Like I said, just recap. You wouldn't want to do these stuff last, because the things at the beginning of the workout should always be maximum intent. The things that need to be maximum intent have to be first, because they require the highest degree of nervous system demand. You wouldn't do bicep curls before you do sprints. That's stupid. If your goal is getting faster, you can do whatever you want. Like I said, it always depends on your goal. And if your goal is to get faster, become more powerful, and use strength as a means to get there, and use a means of hypertrophy to get stronger, then use this format. It can be different if you're a power lifter, bodybuilder, strength athlete, you know, depending on the sport, depending on the in-season, off-season, but generally speaking, this is your order that you want to follow. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment, feel free to message me. This is the bare bones of it. So I hope you guys kind of change your routines, take this into consideration, and start rock and rolling. Peace.